Welcome to the Kscope podcast 161. Billy Reeves here. Hope you're well. The new TesseracT album is almost upon us. Before we hear from Jay and Ackle, let's take a trip to the grey. TesseracT, The Grey, the new single from the forthcoming album War of Being. The LP's out on Kscope on the 15th of September. The video for The Grey features in-game footage from an accompanying video game where you can explore the universe in which the characters featured on the album inhabit. And you can buy it on Steam, the video game. There's a VR on Viva, on Oculus and on Steam Deck, if I understand that correctly. Always pushing ahead your TesseracT. Moss and Daniel Tompkins been very closely involved with this. I think perhaps you'll see more bands bridging music and gaming. TesseracT are gearing up for 3 massive tours, pretty much worldwide. Their first tours since the online Portals show during lockdown. Here's drummer Jay. Is it going to be the future? Are TesseracT well set up for spreading the word using modern technology? Because it strikes me as that you always were.
That's a fairly new technology, and it's a great way for bands to make a bit of money, because once you've done it, you've got this asset that you can continue to sell potentially, and the overheads, you can kind of control that. It's an expensive one-off, but we recouped more than the cost of the show for Portals. Right, cool. Playing on stage to an audience, there's an energy that you can't replicate to a couple of cameras, and there's I think, like you say, people like getting together socially to go to these things, to go and see their favourite bands. There's an excitement when your favourite band is coming to town. It's a great way for bands as well to, to be able to sell merch, because that's really one of the remaining ways that bands make money is through merchandise.
Oh, right. Okay, because there's been a lot of talk about that in this country, with venues charging a percentage on the merch. So is that still okay? Is that still an income stream for TesseracT? Because again, unnamed Kscope bands that I won't mention say to me it's actually a bit of a pain because the fans demand it, but you've got to carry like boxes and boxes of things that you make £2 on. But is it an income stream for the Tesseractians then?
If you sell enough of it, yes.
Right.
Everything that you just said is true.
Right.
The venues take a cut. The people that work around you, the business that surrounds the band, takes a cut.
Yeah.
There's obviously the cost for the companies that you work with. The merchandise companies take their cut because they're providing service.
Make it in the first place, yeah.
Exactly. So you are left with not that much, and especially if you need things quickly, that's the other thing. So we just had to pay a premium to get a load of things for Headbangers parade that we played the other week in the Netherlands, and 5,000-6,000 people there.
Yeah,
and we sold out of all the merch, and the profit was measly. It was like, really, you can sell that much merch and only make that much money? Come on!
But the fans demand it.
But the fans exactly.
The fans demand it,
and
it's part of the experience as well, I guess.
It really is, and fans wearing the merch, it does help us, and it's
such
also
a great logo.
Yeah, and it's an advertisement for us, and it shows kind of the tribe, if you will, like of people that are into it. It continues to grow that. So it's definitely still worth doing, but being creative with your merch is important. And I've been speaking to a lot of people about this because I'm trying to wrap my head around how we grow it, because our merch has been fairly inconsistent for a little while across between the Europe and the US. It's not been the same. And there's different items that they're going to want in different territories. I understand that, but I'm trying to align it a little bit more so that it's more cohesive and makes sense. And I was speaking to people in bands that are bigger than us, asking how they do it. And if you've got an album anniversary or something like that, you release something that is relevant to that. So it might be a hoodie, it might be a jacket, a hat, a mug, something that is good that you've thought about and has been designed specifically for that reason, and you can do a pre-order for that, so that you only make as many as are needed, and then you haven't got excess. You can do that. You can test new designs by doing print to order, so you don't get as much profit from that. But if you're not sure this will work, but let's give it a little go. Give it a week on print to order, see how it does. And also, I mean, album campaigns, obviously, loads of new merch for that, but winter range, summer range, evergreen range, and every 3-4 months you do a specific drop that's like, here's some new stuff. Christmas stuff, if you want something fancy, if you want a nice knitted TesseracT jumper, one of those awful looking jumpers,
Christmas jumper,
you have to plan about 6 months in advance.
Okay, now who's the big rock and roller when you're on tour, and who's sitting there meditating? And is the big rock and roller Monteith, isn't it? Obviously.
Yes.
Dark question, isn't it? Really. He's the one partying and rocking out.
Generally, I say partying and rocking out. It's his way of networking. So right. James, he's got his PR company, and pretty much every single day he's meeting someone at a venue that's a band or someone in the industry that's to do with that. So, and when you do that, inevitably a beer or 12 are involved. Yeah. So that's James.
But also the sort of music, the area in which TesseracT work, you need a James Monteith.
You do,
I think. So who's there meditating with their whale sounds on their iPod?
Kind of the rest of us. I would have said back in the day it would have been Moss. But honestly now all of us are just kind of, Ackle sleeps all day. Ackle will just stay in his bunk and sleep until sound check and then get out, and then it's kind of crazy.
That must be quite healthy though, because there is such a thing as early birds and night owls. It's been proven. I read a book about it recently called Why We Sleep.
I've read that.
Great. Well, then tribes. That's how you protected the tribes. The tribe is only weak between 1 in the morning and 4 in the evening. So who's is always up? Who's always happy about it? Who's the moaner?
I'm the moaner.
It's the drummer.
I'm literally the moaner.
Oh God, I can't lift anything else.
It's the worst. I'm the moaner though, because I get so pissy if my sleep is messed up. But if you read that book that you read, that getting bad sleep is terrible for you. Yeah. And on tour you get pretty terrible sleep. On a bus it's fine, but if we've done this a lot where you play a show, you're doing a festival in Helsinki, and then, oh, by the way, guys, we've got to get to Italy, or we've got to get to South Germany overnight for we've got a 3 p.m. stage time, so you're finishing at 1 a.m. straight to an airport, and there's a bunch of that where there's just no time for rest in between. And in my 20s I'd have bounced back from that, but I'm approaching 40, and I can't. It really messes with me to the point that the last load of summer tours that we did in 2019, I blacked out at one point from exhaustion.
Bad for you, man. Wow.
I know. We'd done a handful of shows back to back with airports immediately after the show. Yeah. So show, airport, fly. Show, airport, fly. Expected to sleep on planes and stuff. And I got on a plane. I kind of went, ooh, I don't feel good. And I tapped the guy next to me, who's one of our crew. I said, oh, something's going on here. And I just, all my stuff just dropped, and I just kind of went limp in the chair. And it happened again on the flight. Then the people on the plane thought I was pissed. They thought I was drunk.
Who's that? Rob, are you all right now?
Yeah, I'm fine. It was literally, I think it was probably low blood sugar and just...
Because surely your synapses are going across the show where you're going 13 time 14 time and playing with that energy. Surely your synapses, you're wired differently to the rest of us, aren't you?
I know. There's a lot that it's very physical, and it's I have to be very focused. And if you haven't slept, I mean, you know what it's like after one day of jet lag. I'm a little bit jet lagged now because I was in the UK 2 days ago, but you know what it's like if you're flying anywhere that's a few hours different, and you've got to stay up that entire day to catch up on the hours. It really messes with your brain, and if you do that for a day and then another day and another day and another day, which sometimes happens on tour, then you become the moaner, which is me.
I'm glad that that's totally fitted into my prejudices. Now, I've been speaking to all members of TesseracT. You'll hear snippets of those interviews throughout the rest of the year on the Kscope podcast. I caught up with Ackle a little while back to find out why the album had taken quite a long time.
It feels like we've had the time just to invest into it personally and just get something that we're all happy with, especially from me personally and for Dan, I know Dan as well, just to give it the time it deserves, for lack of a better word, lack of a better phrase. we were in the studio a year ago, like this time, a year ago in June, and then we finished recording in July. But then I didn't finish the mix until I think it was the end of November or something. The end of November, start of December. So that was 6 months ago. But then you've got to do the video, artwork, and then I think originally we were hoping to do a kind of sort of spring release. We were hoping it would have been out by now. But then I remember management saying there's a lot of albums coming out. You know, Sleep Token, Metallica, yada yada. There's a lot of other bands. So I think he wanted to try and management wanted to try and fit it in, so to speak, into a gap so that it didn't get washed out, to try and give it the best potential, you know. But I think there's a big band that's releasing on the same week, so it's like, God damn it. So you can't really control those things, really.
That's really interesting that that's still, even in this day and age, with things, you know, coming out in so many different formats and coming out on the ether, you know, Ether and Spotify, that still happens. That's really.
It's probably a small thing, but it's obviously a consideration, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, it's something that is a decision that you're not making, which is interesting as well. So you're doing what you're told in a way, I guess.
Essentially, well, I guess it's a suggestion, but a strong suggestion. So yeah.
Back on the road this year and next year, the most spectacular amount of dates in Europe and the US and elsewhere. You guys have always been really adept at putting on an incredibly complex show, but making it professional and easy for yourself by not taking a load of unnecessary gear with you. It's really clever. How do you do that?
When we first started, we had amps and, like, you know, all kinds of bells and whistles, but then it was like, I remember the first time we went to Australia, actually, we got to the airport and we had so much gear that they wanted us to pay about $4 or $5 grand's worth of excess. And it was like, we haven't done this before. So I had to call, like, someone to come back and, quick, take this, we don't need this. And we got it down to like a couple of £100. And then, that was could have been an expensive lesson. But we just have bare essentials. So we've got our quad cortexes. I haven't got one on me. They're like this big for the guitars, bass. 3 guitars each. Moss recently has just been taking 2. Dan's got a couple of preamps he takes out sometimes. And if we have the luxury, we'll take like a small mixing desk with us, because like our in-ear monitor mix is such a big part of it. But it depends what's available at the shows, obviously, and where we're going. But generally, it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty small. Yeah, it's pretty
more expensive, literally, to get on the road and fill in forms.
It definitely is. Remember the last US tour we did? We were like, the next time we come back to the States, when the next album's out, this one that's about to be released, we had to get onto a bus. We had to afford a bus easily. But now the bandwagons that we use, which is kind of like in between an RV and a bus, they've kind of tripled in price, and let alone what a bus or a coach price is. And that's not even inflation. Yeah, it's just like times 3, let alone inflation costs. But yeah, it's everything that's like that. Yeah, and fuel prices and crew, which is understandable. You know, because everyone's got to pay
everyone's
their way.
Prices go up. Yeah. So it's going to. I'm not sure how invasive this would be to mention this, but it's going to be. Is this going to be your first tour as a father? How different is that going to be? And are you going to be taking top tips from Daniel?
Yeah, and James, because they've both got little ones. Yeah, although they're.
If I'd known, I would have asked him.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he's 2 older now, and he's got a little girl. He's about 3, I think.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I'm sure I'll be going for Dan and James for some advice, I'm sure. But yeah, my little one's just 2 months old at the minute, or almost 2 months old. So I thought touring was tiring.
Yeah, having a baby more tiring. Been played any prog metal in the crib yet?
Yeah, I've been trying. He doesn't seem to like metal music yet. I was playing some Pink Floyd. I played. He liked that. I played some Bjork. He started crying. So he doesn't like the avant-gardeness of Bjork yet.
Crazy teeth and beer. I face surprise.
My thanks to Jay and Ackle. That's the denouement of War of Being, the title track of TesseracT's forthcoming album. There's going to be a listening party at the Gallery London N7 on the 8th of September. Your chance to hear War of Being in Dolby Atmos, participate in a band Q&A and try the band's new beer, brewed in collaboration with Alpha Delta Brewing, and play the aforementioned video game, the War of Being VR experience. Tickets are going fast. Check the band's website. Keeping up a similar energy, here's the new single from O.R.k.
Like a stone, hard hands, one more blow. Oh, let it roll. Clouds dies, the pointing bone. Dreams of parasites, tears that hold you near. Whatever you think is right, forever gonna be another last reckoning, we stand all alone. Actions you disown, crushed by the final word. Dreams of parasites, tears that hold you near. Dreams of deadly bites, send you left me here. Whatever you promise, whatever you think is right, forever never be another. Dreams of parasites, tears that hold you near. Dreams of deadly bites, saying you left me here. I'm not a member. Whatever you promise, whatever you think is right, we're gonna be in the
Yeah, O.R.k, Deadly Bite, the latest single from the album Screamnasium. Check the video, starring on drums Michaela Nadenova of Nervosa. Michaela sat in at the 2 days PROG festival in Italy, sitting in for usual sticksmith Pat Mastelletto of King Crimson. He'll be back for the Eastern European dates, joining Colin Edwin, Lef and Carmine Pipitone, who make up the international prog quartet O.R.k. Screamnasium, is out on Kscope now. Now, keen listeners to the news section of the Kscope podcast will have noted me shouting loudly about the joint tour featuring GONG and OZRIC Tentacles, and of course they're not daft. Inevitably both have new albums coming out. Here's Tiny Galaxies from the new one from GONG.
With the telescope up, you'll see infinity. Constellations lit up, impossibility. Tiny galaxies in the subatomic dreams of our deities. Now the magnifier's in place. Telescope down, it makes your eye look wrong. Can you hear the countdown, the Pan-Galactic song?
That's the new single by GONG. It's out now. It's entitled Tiny Galaxies from the forthcoming album Unending, Ascending. And do note well that OZRIC Tentacles and GONG are touring together throughout the UK in November and December. The 18th of November show in London features The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, people. And then again in the spring, the bands team up for another double-dip psychedelic experience, the Last Blast Tour. And keep your ears peeled for some new OZRIC Tentacles in the next Kscope podcast. Now, before I go, a reminder that do please send us a link to any unsigned music, perhaps made by you or someone that you've heard of, that you feel may fit in with the Kscope podcast aesthetic, to listen@kscopemusic.com. That's listen@kscopemusic.com. We'd love to hear something new, and we'd love to play some stuff out that's unheard. Thanks to Steve, by the way, for sending us Dear Mother. Been digging that, a Dutch band. So listen@kscopemusic.com. Going to finish with our dear old friend Bruce Soord. Now, the Pineapple Thief Mastermind has a new solo album coming out on Kscope on September the 22nd. It's titled Luminescence, and Bruce is taking his trio on the road in support of this for a short European and UK tour. Starts at the end of September, and we will see you on the 14th of October at Nell's in London, new venue, which is almost sold out apparently. Here's the second single taken from this beautiful album, Nestle. Do please like, subscribe and share the Kscope podcast wherever you may find it, and we'll be hearing from Bruce Soord in the next episode. Ta-ta!
The coldest air sings softly. I feel it tugging at my hair as I lie here smiling. They said the storm is approaching. You know I didn't dare to look as I lie here and the sky turns to stone. The light fades and collides with the darkness, and everywhere I look I see the same figures, all in pain and calling out. They're calling out. So come inside and don't look, just nestle in and don't